Guys, welcome to the Dr. Ben Tapper podcast. Thank you for all the love and support out there. This podcast is growing, so please keep sharing this podcast far and wide. Before we dive into this episode, I do have a doozy of an interview today. We are going to be talking about some things that are kind of out of my realm of conversations, but really not out of the realm of conspiracies. You guys know I love conspiracies. But, so every time I would talk about vaccines, a lot of the skeptics would be like, oh, are you a flat earther too? And I never really gave it much thought. And I would say, gee, I never really thought about that. And so I started listening to a lot of people that would talk about the flat earth stuff. And I would frankly make fun of them. I would literally legit make fun of these people and say, oh, you're a loon, you're a crazy man. Well, the vaccine stuff, I've been so censored, as so many people know. And I would start questioning, like, well, what else are they hiding from us? What else are they lying to us about? And so I started asking questions, and that's what I am here to do. I'm not, a little disclaimer, I'm not saying I'm a full-blown flat earther, but I'm starting to ask questions. I'm leaning that way, and I'm thinking, gosh, the government's lying to us on a massive scale. So I'm going to bring in an expert today. Flat Earth Dave is a guy that's been standing in the gap for a long time. He's been kind of exposing that realm, and he's an expert in that field. So I thought, why not bring him in today?
To August of last year, nobody really knew who I was.
There's about 12 people who are producing 65% of anti-vaccine misinformation.
We need to come together as Americans and realize that we have a war at hand here. Right?
Like, dude, how scared of this shit do you have to be to be wearing gloves, a face shield, and mask at this point?
Help us to urge folks and say to them, look, it's time to roll up your sleeve and get the shot.
Chiropractor in Omaha, Nebraska, responsible for 65% of the anti-vaccine misinformation. Put what I say to the test. Just don't write me off as crazy misinformation.
Doctor, please bring yourself in order.
600,000 people will die of cancer. 300,000 people will die of obesity this year. When is enough enough?
Flat Earth Dave, how the heck are you?
Dr. Ben, thanks for having me. I'm doing great. And since you mostly talk about vaccines and we're talking about flat Earth, so this podcast is going to reach absolutely zero people according to the algorithm. It's going to be perfect. So we can say whatever we like. Yes. The funny thing is when we talk about flat Earth, I have the same story, but the opposite. Like, you talk about flat Earth with people that just adamantly rule against it, and they go, "What are you, a vaccine denier also?" And we go, "Absolutely, yes, of course, all of us are, because we're awake and aware enough to understand, the nonsense that's going on in this world." And just like you, when flat Earth was presented to me, I was doing a podcast called Deep Inside the Rabbit Hole out of New York City. It was a pretty big podcast, and people started sending in flat Earth stuff, and I just laughed at them. I banned them from our social media for even putting stupid comments like that on our social media. And then finally, Sophia Smallstorm, another researcher who I respect a lot, she's like, "Dave, you have to look into this." And I looked into it not to find out if it was true. I looked into it just to disprove it. And here I am, Flat Earth Dave, talking to you. And, my entire life has shifted into pushing this message because, what difference does the shape of the earth make? I still have to go to work on Monday, is what we all said. I said it. And flat Earth is the most important topic of our time, because if you believe that you live on a spinning ball flying through a heliocentric universe and you evolved from pond scum, you might believe that breathing on your grandma kills her. So there we are.
Right. Right. I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to tell you my progression here, and then I want to kind of maybe challenge and get some of your insight on this.
Sure.
But the thing that really woke me up here is the moon landing. Okay?
That's a good one.
I started questioning the moon landing, and I said, okay, well, how did they literally? I live in the woods, and I have a hard time getting reception in the woods where I'm at. I have a hard time getting cell phone reception, and in some areas I have zero reception in my property. How did the astronauts make a phone call to Nixon's office? How did that happen? Or, you know what I'm saying? From the moon, like, we landed on the moon, there's a phone call. How we had no cell phones. How did they make a landline telephone call?
Well, they did it through the theory of magic. Here's the moonlander buggy right here. Oh, am I showing that? Is that showing?
Yeah, I see it. We see it.
Okay. Whoops. Hold on a second. My bad. I got to switch this over. Sorry about that. So here's the moon lander, and this is this may look like just a spray painted $5 umbrella, but it's actually a special Wi-Fi device that can use the little batteries they had in 1960s and 70s to transmit 250,000 miles back to NASA on a spinning ball through the space vacuum. That's how they did it.
Well, okay, so it baffles my brain. Not only that, the cameramen on this, and then, but the thing the telephone call was a big one. The other thing that there's three things here that I would say really got me to open my eyes on this was the telephone call, but also the fact that NASA literally and I'm sure you've seen this, the interview of NASA said we don't have the technology to go back. I mean, what is that about? Right?
Yeah.
So, this is 1960s, and you're telling me that we don't have the technology to go back to the moon? Are you kidding me?
Never before in history has science gone backwards like it has with the moon landing. We went in the 60s and 70s, I believe, 6 times without flaw, sending men on the moon to play golf and drive dune buggies. But now we can't get by low Earth orbit. I think it was Gene Kranz said, we lost all the telemetry data. So all of the data on the most important, biggest accomplishment of mankind was lost. It was on VHS tapes, and they decided to tape over that because there was a tape shortage back in the 70s, and they taped over that. And then they said that the machines that even play back those special tapes have been destroyed, so they'd have to rebuild those machines even to play them, even if they have them. This is the most ridiculous thing ever. And if you know any of the astronauts, the most famous one, not the most famous, but the one that said we lost the technology and it's a difficult process to bring it back again was I'm just spacing on his name for a second. What's his name? I just it'll come to back. No, not Buzz Aldrin. The guy that said that he seems like he has a mental slowdown rather than use the R word. He seems a bit on the high on the spectrum. Now that I can't remember his name, but it'll come to me in a second. Because when you see this guy, he's of a low intellect, a low mentality. And supposedly when they were looking for astronauts, they had 4,000 applicants, and they chose Don Pettit. That's his name. Don Pettit. Just go look up Don Pettit on YouTube, anybody, and listen to him speak. You can tell by the way somebody speaks of their intellectual level. And they chose him out of 4,000, applicants. So that'll tell you something.
So another thing, that being said, is the third thing that I want to talk about is how did they print pictures of the moon landing? The very next day I think it was the New York Times. Have you ever seen that? Because
I have.
That takes film.
Even when I'm sorry,
no digital. There's no digital computerized camera technology at this time. There's no internet. There's no. This is film we're talking about. 1960s film, physical film.
Yeah. And when they took off from the moon, they filmed. There was a camera filming the thing take off, and it panned up. It panned up. So like what kind of remote technology did they have to make it pan up? And how did they get the video back? The big joke is, they left the guy on the moon.
Oh my gosh. I never even thought about how did they get the video footage back? Right.
Yeah. How did they get it back?
I saw a video of a guy talking about, I was remote controlling this and I had to use like time and space and everything to remotely control. I'm like, it doesn't add up.
This is supposedly from the moon lander. And look at that shadow. Look at that shadow. This thing's going up. That's not how a shadow, as you go up, shadows disperse. They don't stay perfect. That's supposedly the shadow on the moon as they're taking off. Look at that again. This is going up. Those are all the tracks from the rover. And this is the shadow. Get a basketball, hold it on the ground, and lift it up. Watch what happens to the shadow. It doesn't do that. But that's all they needed to fool people back then, and it's still fooling people today.
Right. Dave, I want to ask you, are you a Christian?
That's an interesting question. I am a believer in Christ, and I'm a believer in a creator. And I don't like to label myself because the organized religions have been so infiltrated with so many different factions that I like to just hold my own spirituality, if that makes sense.
We'll be right back after a word for our sponsor. This episode is sponsored by Ezra Healing, a leader in the emerging wellness paradigm taking shape across North America and beyond. People everywhere are recognizing that the old sick care model, quick fixes, symptom chasing, and surface level solutions simply isn't enough. Ezra Healing is a part of the shift toward truly patient-centered care that prioritizes well-being, integrity, and a do-no-harm approach. At Ezra Healing, your whole lifestyle, rhythms, and patterns are considered to better support the interconnected systems of your body. They're focused on real solutions, long-term health promotion and prevention, an evolving grassroots movement dedicated to helping individuals and families live healthier and more resilient lives. If you're ready for a wellness experience that puts humanity first, Ezra Healing is guiding the way. To learn more, visit them at www.ezrahealing.com. And now back to the show.
Okay, so I'm a Christian. I believe the only way to heaven is through Jesus Christ.
I agree with that.
And I do believe that organized religion is, we are created not to. I don't like religion. I believe it's a relationship. But I want to just go into and share my screen on something that I have doing my own research. Have you heard of the Nikon P1000?
Of course, I have one.
Oh, beautiful. Okay, so did we just become best friends? I think so. Okay, let me look here. I'm trying to share my screen. Okay, we're going to share. I don't know if I can do that. We're going to share. Let's just see this. Let's see if I can share my screen. Okay, we're going to go. Can you see this?
I can see your screen sharing.
Okay, can you see my moon here?
No. Try to make it bigger.
Can you see that? I don't know.
I see a black screen.
Okay, do you see this? The moon?
Where's the moon? Is it tiny?
No. Oh, no, it's not working. I don't think it's working. Okay, well, we're just going to stop sharing. Let's just see. Okay. I don't think I have the capabilities of figuring out.
What were you trying to show? Maybe I have the same image.
Well, no, this is the image I took. Let me just show you on my computer. See, this is an image here of the moon.
Of the moon?
Yep. See that? See, I took a picture of the moon with this Nikon P1000. Insane, right? So, I mean, you can just zoom in. I'm going to send this to Josiah. He'll put it in the video. But you have this video of this moon, and I can like zoom in on the surface with this camera, which is insane. NASA, Nikon, they discontinued this camera, which is, I think, is very suspicious. But I started realizing I don't believe the moon is outside of our firmament.
Agreed.
And I was reading in Genesis, okay, and it said basically, and God said, "Let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters."
Page 1.
Page 1. And God made the firmament, and it divided the waters, okay, which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. And it was so. And God called the firmament heaven, and the evening and the morning were the second day. And so I started thinking, okay, what science is observational. Would you agree?
Yes.
Science is looking through the lens of
observational and real science you can test and measure with independent variables. But go ahead.
Yes. And so, to me, it's like we need to go back to that and simplify. Simplify means to remove the unnecessary. What I see in this moon in this camera, I'm firmly sold that this moon is not 270-something thousand miles away.
Let me tell you something else. Zoom in on a city that's like 20, 30 miles away. If you have like flat land or water and you can see a city, like I'm 25 miles from New York City, and I could zoom in on those buildings and get less detail than I can on the moon.
Yeah, so
25 miles away.
Right. So to me, I think the moon is much smaller, and I think it's inside our firmament. And I think the moon and the moon and the sun, I think the sun's in our firmament.
And I think that not because of the Bible saying it, because of observations and scientific method. No, when I first started this, I got to back up a little bit. I would be listening to podcasts. These are great podcasts. They're talking about stuff. I got 3 pages of notes, and all of a sudden they'd open up the Bible and read a verse. I'm like, oh, they're religious fanatics. And I'd throw it out and unsubscribe because that's where I was. But after I discovered that the earth is intelligently designed, I had no choice but to come to the conclusion, undeniable, that there is a creator. And the reason they hide the flat earth is to hide creation. I think that's the number one reason, to hide people from finding out that there is a creator without question, because they don't want people in a place where they cannot deny creation. Because you can, on the heliocentric world, you have your choice. God created it or not. In the flat earth, there's no other choice. Right? There's no other choice. We can get into that. So I remember where I was. So I try not to lead with the Bible verses, but there's unlimited. There's over 200 verses in the Bible that completely talk about a flat, stationary Earth. Nowhere in the Bible they talk about planets or anything else. And I remember as a child, I went on a Young Life trip. I don't know if Young Life is a little Christian organization. And I went to Bermuda, and I was born into a Jewish family, non-practicing, just on the high holidays. We went to temple. And so I really don't even know much about the Jewish religion. But I went on this trip with Young Life, and they did a Bible study. They were going to do a Bible reading. Like, they brought us to this beautiful cliff, and they sat down. They was like, all right, we're going to read the Bible. I'm like, well, that's really weird to me. And the first verse he read was, I forget what story it was, you probably know, where the stars fell to the earth.
Okay.
Right. And me being a science believer and an anti-religion, I was like, stars falling to earth? Well, the Bible's completely ridiculous. A star couldn't fall to the earth. That would be like a yoga ball falling on a BB. It would be even worse than that. And I then for 40 years, I ruled the Bible as complete and total nonsense because of that experience. So this is why they hide it, because they don't want people finding out that they are at the center of creation, and we are important. So let's backtrack a little bit to your observation of the moon, right? The moon's 237,000 miles away is what they say, but people believe in the Hubble Space Telescope. And just last year, they said they found a galaxy or planets, livable planets, 13.4 billion light years away. So we're going to do a little very simple math. Everyone, don't freak out. Don't let me lose you, right? 13.4 billion light years. That's the distance light travels in 13.4 billion years. You can't even fathom what that is, because light in a second travels like 11,000 miles a second or something like that. Something crazy. 1 light year is 5.8 trillion miles. So we're just boiling this down. 1 light year is 5.8 trillion miles. The moon's 237,000 miles away. So 1 light year is 24.8 million times farther than the moon. 4.8 million times farther than the moon. Now you have to take that distance and multiply it by 13.4 billion. Your brain should melt at this point, because you've never been taught to deal with numbers that big. And they're claiming that we can see a black hole at that distance, which emits no light, but we can't zoom in on the moon lander.
Right.
So here's where they get you. They want you to think you're stupid. You're not stupid. It's stupid. The heliocentric model is so dumb that people are just like, well, I don't have a pocket protector or a red lab coat, so I'm not, or a bow tie, I'm not qualified to answer this. Where did I get my degree, Flat Earth Dave? I got my degree. I'm autodidactic. I learned this stuff. I actually looked at what they tell us and verified things. Belief is the enemy of knowing, as Crow 777 Radio tells you. For example, I live in Connecticut, Ben. I live in Connecticut. Where do I live?
Connecticut.
Do you believe it or do you know it?
I believe it.
You believe it. Belief is easy. It takes no effort, takes no verification. You're like, why would he, I kind of hear a little New York accent in his voice. It's right near New York. Why would he lie to me? Makes sense. He's acting like he's from the Northeast. You analyze all these things in a fraction of a second with your conscious mind, stored it as most likely true, right? Would you bet $1 million that I live in Connecticut? Probably not, because you don't have any proof. But you could take the time and effort to verify where I live. Then you would know. But we can't do that. We can't do that with life. We'd never have time to do anything. You couldn't verify that there's not a mountain lion outside your front door every time you open the door. You just believe that there's not, and you open the door, and your judgment is usually pretty good, unless, of course, unfortunately, if you're wrong and there's a mountain lion out there. So my point was, the point I was making was, we're taught things before age 7, And when you're before age 7, your conscious screen, that's what I call it. Your conscious mind is like a sieve. And as you get older, those holes get smaller and smaller and smaller because you have more things to judge, right? And as an adult, you let, hey, Dave Weiss lives in Connecticut, store as most likely true. But as a child, I could tell them that I used to work with Santa Claus. And if it's coming from like a teacher said, Dave Weiss used to work with Santa Claus, or Dave Weiss used to be president of the United States, these kids are going to store this information as new. It becomes the foundation of their life. They're taught that we live on a ball, we orbit the sun. They have the kids march on their birthday. They get to march around the sun with their birthday cake. They're doing all these little rituals to ingrain this belief in us, which literally depowers us, separates us from God, separates us from our true power. And when people say why the lie is the greatest question of all. It's the greatest question of all, and the answers are phenomenal, are amazing.
Well, I think it's super interesting, and I think that it makes a valid point. But what I want to go back to, Dave, is something that I think is the most profound thing that you said, is that going back to the origins of this lie. You said page 1 of Genesis. The reason why I think that this is so profound is that they are trying to get us away from of knowing the Creator. And look at Romans 1:20. Romans 1:20 states that for the invisible things of him from the creation of the world are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse. And what are the two things that we're hit most on with our children? We're going to hit heavily with dinosaurs and astronauts in space. I mean, when I was a kid, they had always ask you, what do you want to be? I'm like, I want to be an astronaut when I was a kid. Everybody. And so, I think that if they can convince us that the world is billions of years old and that there's this, maybe this, lie about the creation, it gets us, it's starting from the beginning, right? It goes back to page 1. If they can lie from the page 1 and get us back, it's easier to get us away and separate us from the truth in Christ. And really, it's evil. And I think if you really zoom out on this is a topic that I think a lot of people in the Christian realm, they say, oh, they want to be complacent. What difference does it make? Well, it makes a big difference, because if they can lie about this and lie about evolution and lie about this and separate us early on, and lie to us early on, they're going to separate us from Christ and the truth. So, but it's interesting.
It is fascinating. And, again, going back to the way I angle this, and everyone does it differently, and this is the way Flat Earth Dave does it, is I lead with the science, and then at the end I say, and in the Bible. Because if I lead with the Bible, I've lost all the non-Bible believers. I was one of them, right? So if you lead with science, everybody can look at science if they're willing to look at it and use their God-given common senses. Then I say, also, the Bible supports this, which is amazing. So, I don't know, I created an app because of the censorship out there is wild. And I have a frequently asked questions page, but I also have a biblical page right here. And what I tell people is, if you believe in the Bible or you don't believe in the Bible, you need to watch these videos because they're all absolutely amazing. This is the main section. There's all sorts of verses in here. This girl, Kay Paji, she does amazing work. She's on TikTok mostly. And it's all biblical stuff. There's a whole course on it, all sorts of stuff. And there's even people doing homeschool about creation science. It's phenomenal stuff. And as I said, if you disbelieve the Bible, just watch some of these. It's going to change the way you see the world.
Right. So one thing, again, people listening, I think it's important to have an open mind. I think it's important to ask questions here. Not like you said, you made the state about Connecticut. You made this point about, okay, well, do you believe? I mean, this is this, you have these little, remember those yard signs that people's like, oh, I believe in science. I believe in this, and I believe at that point, it becomes a religion at that point. Science is looking through the lenses of observation and taking a small scale. Another thing that I question, you never see, and again, the reason, one of the point that got me to really open my eyes about this is that, okay, we never watch and observe water bending, and I've seen people with these Nikon
water at rest, large bodies of water at rest, because people say a raindrop or a wave, right? Large bodies of water at rest always lie flat.
But it needs a container. It needs a container. Yes. And so then again, there's things that I have questions about. The Antarctica Treaty. And, why can't we go there? Why does every country on the nation have this treaty signed that, us peasants can't visit? And then if we go to Antarctica, the people say, well, we can go visit. No, you really you visit a peninsula of Antarctica. We can't really go there and explore. And then Admiral Byrd said that there's tropical areas of this Antarctica, right?
Free and independent exploration of Antarctica is off limits. They'll tell you that there's a marathon run there and people go there. No, they go to a little island. Guess what? They go to a little island. There's 2 islands that they mostly take people to. Deception Island and Rothschild Island. Not kidding. Look it up. Right? And then they show you some penguins, some ice, and they kick you out and they charge you a fortune for that.
Yeah.
Again, there's go ahead.
Okay. So another thing that I think is important is the thing that we have a jet that does Mach 10. I had no idea we even had that, a jet that can fly at that speed. It can fly halfway through or across the globe, apparently, in 30 minutes. Okay. So then I was asking a pilot, well, if you're flying at that rate, do you have to point the nose of the plane down like every 5 seconds? Because won't you just fly right out to outer space? And he said, no. And he said, we fly actually if the Earth is flat. And then that just like blew my mind, because doesn't it matter if you have a rocket? Well, how do they not just fly? Because he said gravity keeps us down. That doesn't make any sense to me, right? Am I thinking clearly? And then if you look at the Gleason map, we still utilize a Gleason map, which is like a flat Earth map, and that's where all the flight patterns are utilized. Am I right, Dave? What am I?
So you're covering a lot of things here. I want to just try to keep up. You talked about the aerodynamics of, where am I here? The SR-71 Blackbird, it flies Mach 3.2. Any faster, this aerodynamic marvel rips apart, right? But if we look at the space shuttle, versus even the 747, the windows are flush on the space shuttle, which goes Mach 33, which is just ridiculous. Of course, 33. It has these inset windows. Imagine if your car had inset windshield like that at 60 miles an hour, it'd be buffering all over the place. But they want you to believe that thing goes Mach 33. It's just absolute insanity. And when you talk about the Gleason's map here, people say, what about circumnavigation? This is good. You kind of touched on that. I think this is a good thing to talk about. When airplanes are traveling east and west, north is our center. So west would be right angle to north, right? If that's north, west would be 90 degrees. I'm trying to show you that, right? West would be 90 degrees. So if I want to go west, I have to keep turning because the needle needs to point towards north. So west is a circle around the center, right? So as you're going west, you have to constantly turn to the right. Otherwise, you'll be going south. You have to turn to the right. Now, on a globe and on a flat Earth, inside of the equator, west would be turning to the right. Globe or flat doesn't prove either. But on a let me move aside here, make it a little smaller. On a globe Earth, south of the equator, you'd have to turn left. But none of them do. They all turn to the right. You have to turn on a globe. You'd have to turn left to go around the South Pole if there was a South Pole. So again, believing the Earth is a ball is easy. That's what you were told. It's the foundation of your belief system. Knowing how it really works takes a little time and effort, but once you know, you can't unknow it.
Right. And I think Mark Twain said it best. It's not what you don't know that gets you in trouble. It's what you believe to be true that just ain't so.
Yeah. Let me show you one more thing. When you're on an airplane, you're taking a nap, you're sleeping, the plane's flying straight and level, awesome. You're kind of dozing there, and then all of a sudden you're getting close to the airport, and the pilot lightly starts to descend. Boom, you wake up. You notice the change from straight and level. Right? So pilot's 125 miles out. He gets on. He goes, welcome. We're about 125 miles out. Please sit up. Put your tray tables up. We're going to be descending. He has to do what's called the angle of descent. He has to calculate how many feet per mile to get down to the runway 125 miles away. And so this is a straight calculation based on his height, distance, divide it, and says it has to drop 1,000 feet every minute or whatever it is. And to get there, the problem is that is a flat Earth calculation. At 125 miles away, the runway is 2 miles lower than that calculation, according to the globe. But when they get there with the flat Earth calculation, the runway is right there.
See, this reminds me of another thing that convinced me was when I remember I think there was a cameraman. I don't know if it was a Nikon P1000, but he had this camera zoomed across Lake Michigan and could see the city, and they, and there should be like 60 miles of bend or 100 miles of bend at this distance.
You're off on your numbers a little bit. This is across Lake Michigan. This is a time lapse of Chicago, and so the weather's changing, the temperature's changing. It's over 18 hours, and all of these buildings, a little hard to see right now, but they'll come back in as this fog clears up. The buildings aren't moving. They're not miraging. They're not changing their height. The top of the tallest building should be hundreds of feet below the curve, but we can see all of the buildings. Right? Oh, I can't see the bottoms of the building. There's a reason you can't see the bottoms of the building, but you shouldn't be able to see the tops of the buildings. You shouldn't be able to see the tops of them at all.
Right, but you can see
we can.
The whole building.
Yeah. What people don't understand is let me just show you this, is a 6-foot tall person standing at the edge of a perfectly calm lake on a perfectly clear day should not be able to see the surface of the water beyond 3 miles because there's 6 feet of curve, allegedly, in 3 miles. That means if you're on the beach in California, the sun is going to intersect with the earth, if it's a globe, just 3 miles away, because that's where you can't see the water and it meets the sky 3 miles away. You're seeing way farther than that. This bridge, this oil platform is 6 miles away, and the second one is 10 miles away. Well, the horizon should be here where my finger is, because at an 8-foot observer, the horizon should be 3.5 miles away, right? 8-foot observer, 3.5 miles. So the horizon should be way up here, which means we shouldn't be able to see the surface of the water, but we can see it here, we can see it in between them, and we can see it beyond them. There is no curvature, Ben. Right? We think we see curvature, but that's perfectly explainable when you take the time to understand how the sun sets. It looks like it's going below the horizon, but it's really going beyond the horizon.
So this means two things. One, we're off on our calculations of the bending of the curvature of the water, or the Earth is flat.
If we're off, we have observations that would require the Earth to have a radius of I think 400,000 miles, and they tell us the radius is 3959, under 4,000, right? The Earth would have to be thousands of times bigger, right? And if the radius of the Earth is off, then everything else about every other planet, space travel, everything is a lie, because we base it off the radius of the Earth. It's all lies.
Dave, have you ever heard of Operation Fishbowl?
100%, yes.
Can you walk me through that?
So I will walk you through it the best I can. It was Operation Fishbowl and Operation Dominic, and the Dominic is a Bible verse. So the after Admiral Byrd discovered the dome in Antarctica in the early 1900s, they did Operation Fishbowl, where they launched bombs up to the firmament and exploded them to see if they can, where it was, what it was, how it reflected energy and stuff, and they determined, where it was, and they tried to break through it, and they could not. Operation Fishbowl, we're in a dome, water is separated from the waters, right? And it's Operation, when he went to Antarctica, it was Operation High Jump, because Antarctica is the highest land on Earth. If you look at the average height of all the continents in the world, Antarctica is over double number 2. Over double. Yeah, here's the average elevation. So that's Operation Fishbowl.
Wow.
Yeah. Water needs to be contained. Water at rest doesn't bend. Air, atmosphere, gas needs to be contained. Hey, I'm having a barbecue, Ben. I want you to come over. Can you bring me the propane? But I don't like containers, so just bring the propane. No container, please. Can you do it?
Right.
And people say, the air is contained by gravity. Well, that's so easily debunked. But when you tell somebody that has has this belief about gravity. They absolutely refuse to see it. Here's a gas simulator, and we create a vacuum out here. And when we open up the valve, all the gas runs out. And if we just remove the container, what happens to the air is that. And people say, well, that's not true. That's not true. Well, here we have gas valve vacuum, right? The gas is being held down by gravity. Supposedly, when I open this valve, it shouldn't go up, but oops, it goes up. Did someone turn the gravity off in that room? Right? Did somebody turn the gravity off? So if I made this vacuum bigger and bigger and bigger, it would just get worse and worse and worse. It would violently explode. So what if you know the picture of this pale blue dot, right? From the Earth, from the Voyager. I'm trying to see where I have it. I don't have it handy. Basically, it's, if everyone remembers that picture, it was basically from the Voyager, billions of miles away. You can see the tiny little Earth. If the Earth is a high pressure gas system next to this infinite vacuum, air's gone, we're all dead.
Mm-hmm.
If the gravity is holding the air down from the space vacuum, I shouldn't be able to drink through a straw, because I could point the straw down with a very tiny low pressure difference of my mouth and lungs. I could pull air and water up and away from Earth effortlessly.
Mm.
So everything that the globers, the anti-flat earthers say, or people that are just indoctrinated and have this true belief, they say, well, there is no proof. Flat earthers are science deniers. No, we actually use the scientific method. There's no scientific proof of the globe. I'll prove it to you right now. Anyone in your audience, if you think this is crazy, Dr. Ben has gone over the deep end, I offer you 3 Bitcoins for 1 scientific proof of the globe. Just 1. Offer's been out for years.
3 Bitcoins. That's a lot of money.
It doesn't matter. I'm not going to lose them because the Earth is not a globe. I wouldn't offer you 3 Bitcoins if there was a chance that I was wrong. There's not. Now, Ben, ask me exactly what the Earth is.
Well, what is the Earth?
I don't know, man. I know it's not a ball. I know it's not floating in space. I know it's topographical level horizontal. I know that all plumb bobs go down and are parallel. I know that people in Australia are not upside down. I know that space is not a vacuum adjacent to a high pressure system. I do believe that there is some sort of containment. There has to be. But the thing is, if space is water, which I think it is, well, that's not as bad as a vacuum, because, like a bubble on the bottom of a pot that's about to boil, if you were standing inside that bubble, you're on the little flat pot with a dome above you. Now, to you at a microscopic level, that air pressure is going to, that surface of the bubble is probably going to feel solid to you, like a bug landing on the water, right? The surface of the water is solid. It's hard to them. To us, it's still liquid. We can break right through that surface tension. So what is the dome? I don't know. The Bible says it's, like a liquid crystal or something. I don't know.
Well, so going back to gravity, I mean, this is a concept that I had a hard time, because I can drop my keys and the keys will drop, right?
Yeah.
I fall, we fall. Things always go down. So explain that to me.
We'll be right back after a word for our sponsor. Today's episode is sponsored by Ezra Healing, a place devoted to renewal and deep-rooted well-being. Ezra Healing supports individuals and families in soothing the nervous system, releasing accumulated stress and trauma, and restoring the body's God-given ability to repair and thrive. Their method is gentle, discerning, and grounded in honoring how the body was created to function. With steady guidance, thoughtful education, and practical resources, they come alongside each person to foster safety, resilience, and whole person healing. If you're seeking a space to breathe, rebalance, and truly heal, Ezra Healing offers a powerful path forward. To learn more, visit them at www.ezrahealing.com. And now, back to the show.
So here, we sent a drone up here. There's a lot of electricity in the sky. The Earth has a neutral or negative charge to it, and the sky is positive. This is testable, scientifically provable. So I actually did this with a drone, and I grabbed the wire. I'm never going to do that again. So much electricity came through that wire. It jolted me, and I just literally brought the drone down, threw the wire away, and I said, I'm not doing that again. But this guy's creating what's called a Franklin bell. He's got a ground, and every time the thing touches, it changes the charge. So it's literally pulling it, showing you that electrostatics can pull. can pull. He's trying to just discharge it, so it just keeps changing the charge and going back and forth. Interesting. All right. Let's take a look at first, Walter Lewin, a great MIT professor, says it's electrical forces that hold our world together. Okay, he's a pretty smart guy. Here we have some leftover balloons, helium balloons from a party, and we have just a button here, and it's neutrally buoyant about 2 inches above the floor. Now that wire is connected to a Van de Graaff generator, and we're going to add a little more positive charge to this. Anything above the ground has a positive charge already, but we're going to add more. Well, positive and negative attract. Did I change gravity or did I change the electrostatic attraction? When I discharge it, it goes back up. So I just did a scientific experiment with an independent variable showing you that electrostatics can make things go up and down. Here we're going to do the opposite. We add a negative charge. It goes up. We turn it off. It goes down. We turn it back on. It goes up. Negative and negative repel each other, so it goes up. We can do it with little pieces of stuff, and it goes up and down. And here is an MIT, they created what's called the silent drone, and it's got no moving parts. It's just using electrostatics to levitate and move around. The XRT-3B triangle aircraft, if I got that number right, by the military, is disclosed that it uses electrostatics for lift and propulsion, and in my opinion, it's pulling the free energy out of the air so it can fly forever and silently, right? We should have this technology and have flying cars by now, right? But they're not going to give us technology that would allow us to explore where they don't want us to explore. So electrostatics make things go up and down. It just says, hey, down is this way, and it's a weak force. It's a weak force. And then buoyancy and density sort everything else out. If I had ping pong balls, rocks, and a helium balloon in my hand, and I held it over a pool, and I opened my hand, the balloon's going to go up because it's less dense than the air. The rocks and ping pong balls are going to go down because they're more dense. The ping pong balls will stay on top of the water, and the rocks will go to the bottom. Buoyancy and density sort everything else out. The downward direction is by the measurable electrostatic flow into the earth. We are electrical beings. Sometimes when lightning strikes next to somebody, they go flying in the air. Did it turn off gravity, or did it possibly change the electric charge of the earth right under their feet for a split second and send them flying into the air?
Super interesting. My brain just goes, okay, well, going back to Antarctica, we're not allowed to go there. And then you look at the Arctic, it's north. And then Arctic, like Antarctica. Yes. It's just funny, the words and the meanings. It just gets my brain going, well, maybe there's so much that is covered up in this world that we're just not told. And I think that, I know that we're electrical beings. I mean, my profession, chiropractic, is based off of neural synapses, electrical charges, and our goal is to remove subluxation. And sub means below, lux is a Latin word for light, and ation is condition. Your brain is sending neural impulses throughout the body. You look at when two cells formed in the womb, there's literally a light synapses that occurs when there's at conception, and so it makes me wonder. And then we need electrolytes. Why? Yeah, we are electrical beings, and I use a form of a detox that focuses on ionic charges, positives and negatives, and it puts hydrogen in the body. I mean, it confirms what you were saying, that we are electrical beings, that we are. Everything has that. And then look at how compasses work. It's the magnetic fields. So there's something to what you're saying.
There's so much to what I'm saying. And the thing is, it's easier to reject it because then you don't have to learn it all over again. And most people hated school because their subconscious, their soul knew that they were being taught nonsense, 99% of it. And that's why they hated school. Then they finally got through. They got good grades because that's what their parents wanted them to do, and that's how you progress through this system they have us in. And they never want to do it again. So all of a sudden you come to them and say, hey, by the way, all the history, all the biology, everything you've been taught in science and about the world is a lie. People are going to fight that. They're like, no, I don't want to learn again. And that's how I was. But once you see the beauty of this place, that we are at the center of creation, it's amazing. You said about the words. So this is So this line here, the yellow line, is the Tropic of Cancer. This one, the outer one, is the Tropic of Capricorn. So inside here is the Arctic area, and outside here is the Antarctic. Well, what's the sun doing around here? Well, it's arcing, the Arctic, like a clock. And when you're out here, the sun's not going around you. If you're here, it comes towards you, then it goes away. It's antarcing, the Antarctic. Interesting, or just a coincidence? I don't know.
That is
Right?
interesting.
Yeah. And if you turn on the compass, north is at the center. Let me just turn it. There you go. And south is every direction away from north. That is south. That is south. That is south. And that is south. Point any direction, you're pointing south. Even if you're pointing north, that's north, that's north, that's north. Oh, now it's south. Every direction you point is south. East and west, as I said before, are circles around. So if you leave New York and go west for travel for about, all the way around, you'll end up right back to where you started from, and your compass will say west the whole time because you went around. Put a magnet on your desk, get a compass, put it down, and try to push that compass west. It's a circle around the magnet. Doesn't make it a sphere. You circumnavigated. And you know what's weird, Ben? All the people that have circumnavigated the world have done it east to west. Nobody's done it south. Weird, right? Oh no, Antarctica's too cold and dangerous to fly over. Get out of here. We have people in space, supposedly. You believe people are in space? Come on.
Right. Well, Dave, I want to know, for you, what is it that's the most, if you were to present someone with the most, I would say, damning evidence against the globe model, in the one piece of evidence that you know without a doubt that this would revolutionize this whole and uproot this whole thinking, what's the one piece of evidence that you'd bring to the table?
That's a great question, and it's different for everybody. Some people, just show them the censorship. They're like, whoa, why would they censor that? They don't censor Bigfoot. You don't censor this. You don't censor that. Other people, it's the Bible. Other people, it's, there is no curvature. For me, it was, okay, boats go over the curve. That's what I was taught. And then I bought a P1000. I bought the P900 actually before the P1000. And I zoomed in on a buoy that was 10 miles away. Well, that buoy should be behind 60 feet of water. But I could see the surface of the water beyond the buoy. And so I said, okay, wait a minute, the curvature calculator is wrong. And so you go to the debunking sites and they say, oh, well, there's refraction. So I added 50% refraction, which is ridiculous. Refraction is just a joke. And I still shouldn't be able to see it, but I saw it. And that's what got me. But one of the ones that gets a lot of people are flight routes. So from New Zealand, right? We got Australia around the corner here for you. We got Argentina and South America. FlightAware says this is the shortest route. We don't have to go over Antarctica and disturb the penguins. There's actual islands out here that they could land on. So there's no excuse why we wouldn't fly here, right? But the actual flight route goes from New Zealand across the equator to San Francisco, across the United States to Texas, and then all the way back down, Ben. That's the route that it takes. And when we look at it on a flat earth map, New Zealand, San Francisco, Houston, Texas, Argentina.
Straight shot.
It's always a straight shot. Right?
That's the thing that convinced me. That's the thing that I looked at the flight patterns and I'm like, it doesn't make any sense.
All these people from Wellington wanted to go to Lima, Peru to see the pyramids, but they had to stop in Los Angeles.
It's insane.
It's absolutely insane. And when you take the time to look, Ben, that's the only time you're going to get it. And I'd say 95% of flat earthers became flat earthers by trying to debunk it. Not by trying to prove it, not by looking into it, by trying to debunk it. Like, that's not how you learn something. Right. You learn something by saying, all right, let me look. One person's saying this, one person's saying that. Let me see what's true. We go in going, flat earth is nonsense. It's nonsense. Right. I'm gonna rule it out. And that's how you become a flat earther. I tell people, Ben, don't believe anything I say. Don't believe that. That just makes you, religious even. Verify it. I'm pointing to doors that you were told weren't there. You're blinded by boats going over the curve being the only explanation why boats disappear from the bottom up. Mm-hmm. Let me just give a quick plug here. I created this app because I don't have the time or the ability or to explain flat Earth fully to everybody. I want to make you curious, and you'll have lots of questions. But if you go to the frequently asked questions page, like where does the sun go? That's a big one. Circumnavigation, eclipses, we can see too far. Why the lie? My favorite section. There's great videos in there. All of your questions are answered here. Right? This is my app. You can find it at flatearthdave.com. It's available only for iOS devices and Android devices. Now, soon it'll be available on a web version, so you can use it on any computer or anything. And there's all sorts of stuff in here. Ben, I'm sure you've looked into the old world.
Like Tartaria?
Like Tartaria, I call it the old world because who knows what it was called.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
I just believe there's massive lies on the architecture and what this world was about. I believe the Nephilim, they're covering this up. There's so much to be uncovered here. It's insane. And so to me, all this excites me because the world that we've been taught is boring. And the reality of history and the world that we know is so much more fascinating than what we're led to believe.
100%. Have you looked into the Nephilim look like clowns?
I've heard of that.
Mind blowing.
Yes.
For those of you that are new, my lunch break, he every week puts out 1 or 2 videos. They're phenomenal, and they're short, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and just watch any 3 episodes. You're done. You're finished. You're going to realize that that's why you hated history class, because it was all lies. And then once you see that, then you can start seeing the rest of the world. Like, Ben, when I go outside, if I walk in through the woods or just drive down anywhere, even in a city, I look around and go, how did I miss that? How did I not see that my whole life? I mean, there's old world buildings right where you live. There's mud flood evidence right where you live. There's everything, but you were brainwashed not to see it.
Yep. And I think that's something that's very fascinating. The architectural, look at these buildings that were built in 1500s. They're so fascinating, so beautiful. The architect that went into the architectural design and the work that went into this, is unbelievable, and just so beautiful. And we're told that they had horse and buggies, and they didn't have the technology to build these types of buildings. But I think that's all a lie.
100%. It's absolutely mind blowing. You mentioned before electrical, like we are electrical beings. Have you looked into any plasma technology?
I haven't, but is this going with some of these buildings have the capabilities of generating electricity?
I think that's the whole thing, that these buildings were in tune with the human resonance of the earth. But there's actually old technology that's now being built in Mexico mostly, that literally you connect to these things. I actually have one of these things. It's absolutely amazing. And it literally gives all of your cells in your body the life force energy that it needs to operate perfectly. It's absolutely amazing. And there's tons of information. You can look up radiantphi.com. There's a ton of information there, and it's very, very it's mind-blowing.
Yeah, Radiant Phi. I'm gonna have to look that up. Well, Dave, we're coming to the hour. I really appreciate all the wisdom that you brought to this conversation. This has been a fun conversation for me. I want to know, again, just put a plug in where people can find you, that app, again, where we can download that app.
Yep.
And find you on social.
The app is at flatearthdave.com. That's the only thing I need you to remember. I'm on X, I'm on TikTok, I'm everywhere, but flatearthdave.com, all the links to my socials are there. Flat Earth Dave X is my where I am there, and I talk about other things there that we're not allowed to talk about on YouTube. I'm speaking at Acapulco and Puerto Vallarta actually in a week from now or so, February 15th to 20th, if anyone wants to get away. It's a huge conference, amazing speakers, and that's in Acapulco. In Puerto Vallarta, first year in Puerto Vallarta, on the 15th to the 20th of this month, February. So
awesome. Acapulco.
Oh, you've been? Have you spoken there?
I've spoke there, I think 2 or 3 times.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yep. Yes. It's a good event.
Yeah.
Well, Dave, really appreciate you, my friend. Love all the wisdom that you bring. We might have to do a part 2 in this because there's a lot to unpack here. I think I have a lot more questions here, but the biggest thing is that we need to keep searching, keep asking questions. God gave us a brain for a reason, and I think, again, we live in a world right now where Satan is real. He's known as the father of lies, the father of deception, and, he is deceiving the masses right now. And so I think it's important to keep digging, keep asking questions. Again, Mark Twain said, it's not what we don't know that gets us in trouble. It's what we believe to be true that just ain't so.
So what you're going to notice in your comments is the anti-flat earthers. And I think these are not just paid agents, but most of them are just people that have spiritually influenced by negativity, that people that'll just get into them and they will defend the globe, but they have no proof. They'll make accusations. They'll never supply a proof. Their channels are usually empty channels, and they're just going to go crazy in your comments. So just look at that for what it is. Look for the proofs. The flat earthers will show up and they'll say, yes, and what Dave said, here's some more information. They'll actually give you more information. Don't believe anybody. Verify everything yourself.
Right. And I'm used to being slandered in the media, and I'm used to being slandered by people. And I think it's blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake. Those that are seeking the truth, you'll find it. I mean, the truth is a narrow path, people. And I think it's important that we ask questions. But this is why, I'm asking questions. That's why I brought Dave on this podcast. I wanted to have a conversation with him. I want to dig deeper. I want to see what he brings to the table, the points that he makes. And I'm not just going to take it for what he says. I'm going to keep doing my research. This is why I bought a Nikon P1000. I know nothing of cameras outside of the camera on my cell phone. This is why I bought the Nikon P1000. And I encourage you to do the same. Go buy one of those cameras and start doing your own investigations. Start researching. Start thinking for yourself. Start thinking outside the box. I mean, when we are told what to think, that's called indoctrination. We need to really start asking the right kind of questions. Well, Dave, I appreciate you, my friend. People listening, please share this podcast far and wide. Thank you for all your support. God bless you guys. I want to shout out to Ezra Healing for our supporting our podcast. You guys have been phenomenal. Go to Ezra Healing. They stood in the gap. Savannah, she's the owner of Ezra Healing. She was fired for refusing the vaccine in Canada, and now she started this company, and so she is sponsoring this podcast. I just want to shout out to them. So thank you guys. God bless you guys. And again, share this podcast far and wide, and thank you guys. God bless.
Thanks.
To August of last year, nobody really knew who I was.
There's about 12 people who are producing 65% of anti-vaccine misinformation.
We need to come together as Americans and realize that we have a war at hand here. Right?
Like, dude, how scared of this shit do you have to be to be wearing gloves, a face shield, and mask at this point?
Help us to urge folks and say to them, look, it's time to roll up your sleeve and get the shot.
Chiropractor in Omaha, Nebraska, responsible for 65% of the anti-vaccine misinformation. Put what I say to the test. Just don't write me off as crazy misinformation.
Doctor, please bring your cell phone over.
600,000 people will die of cancer. 300,000 people will die of obesity this year. When is enough enough?